Welcome back, everybody, to Sisters-in-Law of Attraction. I'm Sam,
And I'm Christine.
and we're so thrilled you're back with us. We talk a lot about resistance and how why you're not connected to the universe and you're not high vibey and you're not able to accept. But honestly, God, universe, whatever you want to call it, wants to give you. Uh, God, universe wants good things for you and wants you to be happy. Most of us live in a state of fear without even realizing it. And today, Christine, I think we just do a deeper dive into this thing called fear because quite honestly, it's the one thing that stands in our way of of living the life of that we were meant to live and accepting and being open to the good things that are meant for us. And we
Exactly.
just got to get out of our way. So last time, Christine, we talked about the quote from Joseph Campbell. Yes,
Yes.
and I don't know, you could probably remember it better than me, but it was about the cave, right?
Yes, the cave, unlocking the cave, and the fact that the person who has locked the cave is also the person who can unlock it, meaning that you are your own worst enemy when it comes to fearing things, waiting for the other shoe to drop. That is no way to live. That is living in fear, and you don't have to do it.
Yeah, and this concept of you know the cave that you fear actually has the
The
treasure.
treasure you seek. Yep.
Yeah. And so it's and again it's all about rewiring that brain because bad things are going to happen, right? It's but how do you respond to it really matters. And really you can there's a whole lot we can't control in this life, and again control is a form of fear. I learned
Yes.
this long ago. I
Yeah.
just figured if I controlled everything in life, then I would be prepared and all of this. And it was the moment that I gave up control is when I started being open to accepting the good that I was meant for. And it also allowed me to act because
Yeah.
most of the time we don't take action because we're fearful, right? We're
Exactly.
afraid of failing, or we're afraid of people judging us, or,
We don't know what we're doing.
right,
Imposter syndrome. We don't want to look stupid.
right, exactly. I feel like all my stories are kind of related to like doctor's appointments, and really I am quite healthy. So but this honestly did happen. I was getting a checkup several months ago, and I started talking to the medical assistant, and again, I have no idea how it came up, but I was feeling good that day, and blood work came back great, and I'm like, I'm living my life. I'm doing me and feeling good, la la la. And so anyhow, so I don't know how it came up, but the medical assistant shared with me. He says, my wife just lost her job, and she worked for a local hospital, and they were making cuts, and but she got a severance, and it's not, we're not going to retire on the severance, but it's giving her a chance to take her time in finding something. But he said she's just so panicked,
Yeah.
and
Well,
she
I get
keeps on
that.
applying to all these jobs and nothing's coming through, and she's just panicked.
Yeah.
And he says, I don't know what to do for her because she's just absolutely beside herself. And then he also did share, their youngest son had some medical trauma early on in his life, in and out of the hospital. And so that just added to, her fear of
Yeah.
not being able to, pay for his medical attention and all of this. And I said to him, I said, what if instead of her looking at this with a sense of fear, what if she just changed her thought a little bit to say, you know what, I'm going to view this as a gift of time.
Yes. 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 Yes.
So this bad thing that happened really was an opportunity. And
Mhm.
he looked at me, he says, "Oh my God." He goes, "Yes, that's exactly right. Oh my God." I guess I can't wait to talk to her. He says, "You're exactly right." I said, "Well, I mean, it's not like, you're going to tell her like, hey, don't be afraid and everything's going to be fine and look at this as a gift." And she's going to look at you and go like, "What the heck?" Right? But help her try to look at it in a different way.
Shift
And
that mindset. Yes. And it's not
exactly.
easy.
No, no. And just try it on for size. Like, suspend the, oh my God, I have to find a job. Why is no one hiring me? If I don't get a job by next week, we're going to be in financial ruin. Like, what if you just suspended those thoughts for a moment and you said, I've been given the gift of time with a severance. I've been given a 2-month severance.
That's
It's a
amazing.
gift of time.
Yep.
I'm going to spend time with my son. I'm going to spend time really reflecting on what my next move should look like instead of, she was constantly applying for, similar jobs that she was in.
Sure.
Um, so anyhow, that is just another example of, you can suspend fear by just changing your mindset and looking at it, literally just turning the thought upside down.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, easier said than done, right? But it is a practice. It's a discipline.
Yes.
It's working that muscle out to say, okay, fear might be my initial reaction, but it's not my response. It doesn't have to be your response. So, step one in that is just being aware of the feeling you get in your body when you're scared, whether it's a pit in your stomach or your heart is racing or your palms are sweaty or your thoughts are going bonkers. Like, being aware of that fear and then saying like, okay, do I really need to be fearful of XYZ, right? And stopping, recognizing that that's your thought pattern, and then literally, like, how many times have I done it? Literally out loud say, ooh, that's not what I want to say. I don't want that out in the universe. We're going to redo it, reflect, repeat something completely different. But
Right.
yes, flipping it on its head and changing the mindset is easy, but it takes a lot of discipline.
Right. And a lot of time I've said, particularly to my kids, change the tape. Literally just change that. What if you just change the tape, the script, whatever in your head? What if the thought, instead of, I'm not going to find a job in time, we're going to be in financial ruin, again, literally you have the power to rewrite that script. You can change that thought, but it takes, obviously, you have to be mindful of the thoughts, and you have to sit in observation and not judgment, and just recognize so that you can, like you said, Christine, catch yourself, because you do,
And it
you have to catch yourself.
absolutely. And I think it also sometimes takes maybe an outside force to kind of remind you, hey, you're not stuck. Your
Right.
feet are not glued to this ground, so to speak, right? You can go try new things. You can, as my husband likes to say, you can just go do things. You
Right.
could go do anything. And sure, having a family and a home and all of that might make it more difficult, but it's not impossible. And if
Right.
it's something that you really want, then figure it out, right? And again, easier said than done.
Sure.
but but
Well,
with the right attitude and the right tools and resources in place and like you said, the faith that it is going to work out.
right.
Like,
Right.
okay, sure, you lost your job. That was the universe maybe nudging you, and this isn't what you're supposed to be doing right now. Or
Exactly.
this is happening for a reason and you don't know yet, and maybe you won't know for a year or 2 years or 6 months from now, who knows? But there will be a purpose to it.
Exactly. And so much too that we hit our heads against that door that we think we're supposed to go through.
Mhm.
Maybe that door or has already been prescribed in our life, and it's like, well, I've always done this, so I guess this is what I need to do. But the door's locked and you're banging your head against it. And so if you just, in this moment, like I told this medical assistant, give your wife the permission to take a deep breath and look around.
Yeah.
Look and see, are there other doors? Are there other things out there for me that I didn't know existed? And if she just for one moment took a deep breath and turned and looked to her left, looked to her right, and saw that there were, oh my gosh, there's other doors here. There's not just this one door that I'm
Yeah.
banging my head against, you know. And so fear is you're no stranger to fear.
No, I'm not.
Uh, fear has strangled you in your life in many ways, but we're going to stay on a little bit of on this health theme. But you had a series of health fears that kind of had a chokehold on you.
Yeah, absolutely. It ruled the roost for quite some time. Um, yeah, it was definitely something that started, I would say, maybe 8 or 9 years ago. And over the years, it would be, maybe once a year, once every year and a half, I would think that there was something wrong with me, whether it was I would feel a lump or a bump or whatever it was, whether it was a breast cancer scare or a melanoma scare, or
Sure.
I mean, there are countless things that was like, oh, I think this is, and then I spiral, and so over the years, it went from, maybe once every year and a half, something would come up. And so for a few weeks, I would be spiraling and, go to the doctor, figure out everything's fine. Okay, okay, great. And then it would happen again. And over the last 8 or 9 years, it got to the point where it was not happening once every year and a half. It was beginning to happen once every year, once every 6 months.
Yeah.
And, I guess it was last about a year and a half ago, I had two back to back where I was convinced that I had melanoma or, well, melanoma and lymphoma, two different
Yeah.
ones. I mean, eh, and yes, there were things that there was an actual bump. I really did actually not have a skin check. So those are things that in my head were possibilities.
Sure.
But for a person who has a healthy thinking brain, I guess I'll say, you feel like a little lymph node that might be swollen, and you don't automatically think that you are dying.
Right.
Well, I do. I did. Not
You
anymore.
did. Not
I did.
anymore.
Um, I did, and it came to the point where I was I put myself into having anxiety attacks for the first
Yeah.
time in my entire life. My
Right.
entire life, I've gone, never one time would I have ever said that I was depressed or anxious. I think, when you become a parent, maybe you get some anxiety, got,
Sure.
kids, you're worried about them, all that. But I had never, it was like I didn't recognize myself anymore.
Yeah.
It was like I was anxious and worried all the time
Yeah.
about leaving my kids without a mom.
Yeah. And I
And
remember you telling me that. You just said, I'm so upset. These thoughts are, you know, like really bringing me down. And I'm so fearful that I am not going to be here for my children. And I mean, and so, I mean, gosh, you talk about manifestation, right? And again, I'm not saying that you manifested all these like issues in your body, but you were in a state of resistance
uh-huh,
because of that fear. And
absolutely.
you couldn't feel, healthy and happy and all the things because you were so consumed by the fear that something terrible was happening, in your body. And again, it's, you know rationally you can just say, okay, come on, Christine, like,
Sure.
just, get it together and whatever. But it's, it's much deeper than that. And it actually reminds me a little bit of actually I've used this the work by Byron Katie. She wrote a book called Loving What Is, and the work essentially is just four very very simple questions, and I've used it many times in my life where I'm so consumed with a narrative in my head that it's like is this real? Is this
Right.
true? Or did I manufacture this, in my
Right.
brain?
Right.
And so, you know, I think kind of just using your example of, let's just say the skin cancer. You were convinced that this spot was cancerous, and so so I'd ask you, is it true that you have skin cancer?
Yeah. I mean, at the time, I would have told you, uh, it's true that in 3 weeks' time, I'll have a positive biopsy that I have melanoma and it's spread to
Yep.
my liver, and now I have 6 months to live. That's what I would have told you.
Right. Right.
Crazy.
No, I mean but it's just again, it's such an illustration of the power of the mind. And
Right.
if it can do negative things, imagine the great that it can do. And so the next question is, so you believe it's true, is it true? But can you absolutely know that it's true? Can you absolutely know that it's true that you had skin cancer at that time?
No,
No.
no.
Okay. And so then the next question is, how do you react or what happens when you believe that thought?
I spiral.
Yeah.
Spiral, I Google, I do all of
It's
the
the
I mean, I
worst.
finally had to take Chrome off of my phone because I was Googling all the time. All the time. And guess what? When you Google stuff that you can find whatever answer you want to be true. So going in there and being like, what happens? What are the symptoms of lymphoma? Oh, you have, swollen lymph nodes. You lost weight unexpectedly, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh, yep, that's me. And then
Yep.
I've convinced myself that I have it fully.
Exactly. Exactly. So, and then the next very simple question is, who would you be without that thought?
Yeah. Who I am today,
Yeah.
at peace.
Yeah.
At peace is where I would be. So why was I resisting it for so long, right? I think because
Yeah.
maybe it felt unfamiliar to me, or I'd lived in fear for so long that I didn't know what it would be like to not live in fear.
Right. Right. And then, and of course, Byron Kelly goes, or Katie rather, goes on to, talk about the turnaround. And that's, again, that's where the work is. But what's brilliant is that there's four very, you know, simple questions, and I've used it so many times in my life, like when I was having a problem in a personal relationship, or perhaps it was a friend that I thought was angry with me, and so
Sure.
then I created, right, we've all done this, right,
Yeah.
it's oh my gosh, she's angry with me, what did I say, and you're so fearful that you've done something wrong and you've ruined the relationship or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
And and then you just ask yourself, is this true? And of course you're like, well, yeah, I mean, she's mad at me because she hasn't called me, or da 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 da. And then, and then you ask the question, how can you know that it's absolutely true? And it's like, well, okay, I can't absolutely know that she's mad at me because she hasn't really
Sure.
told me she's mad at me. And then who would I be without that thought? Again, I would be at peace. I would be, happy about that relationship, and I wouldn't be filled with anxiety about the next time, we had an interaction or whatever.
Yeah.
And you know and then and then the friend calls, and she's just been super busy. She's not mad at you. Right, I mean, it's just all that you just created that monster in your head, and that narrative. That's
Worshiping a worry that isn't even there.
Yes, exactly. And I think it's worth talking about, because the whole point of sisters-in-law of attraction, and the community of like-minded people that we're building here, is it's about getting rid of fear and resistance, which is actual darkness, and leaning into the joy and gratitude, and bringing light to others. And so I'm going to close with something that, and I actually might cry over this,
No.
but I was thinking last night about, obviously when my kids were little and I'm helping a friend through empty nesting and, I act like I have, all the answers, to empty nesting. I am actually quite enjoying my life.
You do
I
have
love
a
my
lot of
darling children,
answers.
but it's like, you do you, boo boo. I have to come live my life over here. But I remember putting little Max to bed, in a little prayer every night, and it just came to mind, and it said, "Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for all of my blessings. Thank you for my mommy and daddy. Thank you for my family and friends. Thank you for my awesome school and my teachers. Please help me to be a good person and to help others." And that was our prayer every night. And I remember in the moment, he would just take those little arms, and squeeze my little neck. I just have that image. And I just, you know, I'm so grateful that I had that moment with him. And and I, to this day, I can feel his little hug. He's 20 years old. He's kind of a little but whatever. Anyhow, it's okay. No, I just talked to him this morning and I'm just like, listen, Linda, you got to do da 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 da. He goes, don't tell me what to do. I was like, oh,
I'm your
okay.
manager.
I am your manager. I am. Yeah, I'm still kind of your mom, but I know you're a young adult. Whatever. He's going to figure it out. He's amazing, but whatever. But it just reminds me of, he asks, and this is kind of what it's all about. Mommy, why am I here? Oh my God, seriously? Could you ask me anything? Mommy, why am I here? This 5-year-old little boy wants to know what his purpose is on this life. And I just told him, your job is to lift others.
Yep.
And so that's what this is about. This is about living in the lane of joy and gratitude so that you can bring light to others and to lift others. And so, gosh, Christine, it's like
It
2
goes by
seconds and
so
it's over.
fast. It goes
Well,
by so fast.
right. Here's the great news. We get to come back again next week. And so we can't wait for you guys to join us again. Thank you so much for being here. This is Sisters-in-Law of Attraction. I'm Sam.
And I'm Christine.
And we'll see you next time. Bye.